Imagine a world without Braid's time manipulation, Undertale's moral choices, or Hades' player-driven development. Indie games have become so ingrained in gaming that it's hard to imagine the industry without them. For years, indie games were the scrappy underdogs, overshadowed by AAA behemoths. Today, we're diving deep into the indie revolution, exploring 6 groundbreaking ways these smaller titles have forever changed how we play, experience, and think about video games. First up, let's talk about the bread and butter of gaming, the mechanics. Indie games didn't just tweak the formula, they threw out the rulebook and started from scratch. Take Braid, for example. Released in 2008, Braid was a puzzle platformer that messed with our minds. Literally. Its time manipulation mechanic forced players to think in completely new ways. Need to undo a mistake? Rewind time. Want to create a copy of yourself? Fast forward and watch your past self repeat your actions. This wasn't just innovation, it was revolution. Braid's time-bending brilliance didn't go unnoticed. AAA titles like Quantum Break took inspiration, incorporating similar mechanics into their own big-budget releases. Suddenly, time manipulation wasn't just an indie darling, it was a mainstream mechanic. Celeste, a platformer known for its brutal difficulty, also made waves, but not just for its challenging levels. Celeste became a shining example of how to prioritize accessibility in gaming. The developers incorporated a robust assist mode that allowed players to customize their experience. Want to slow down time? Done. Need infinite jumps? No problem. Celeste proved that challenging gameplay and accessibility weren't mutually exclusive, setting a new standard for the industry. Major studios, including the team behind The Last of Us Part 2, took notice. Thanks to indie pioneers like Celeste, the conversation around accessibility in gaming has shifted. Indie games showed the industry that gaming should be for everyone, regardless of skill level. Now, let's talk story time. For years, AAA games had a bit of a blockbuster complex. Explosions, set pieces, and epic storylines were the name of the game. But then came the indie scene, and suddenly, we were crying over skeletons and making life-or-death decisions about talking flowers. Indie games reminded us that stories could be small, personal, and incredibly impactful. They ditched the over-the-top narratives and focused on emotional depth, character development, and player agency. Undertale, the RPG that took the world by storm, is a perfect example. In Undertale, you don't to fight. You can choose to befriend your enemies, spare their lives, and experience a completely different story. This moral choice system wasn't just a gimmick. It was woven into the very fabric of the game. Games like Life is Strange took notice, doubling down on player choice and branching narratives. Indie games proved that players didn't just want to be entertained, they wanted to be invested. Thanks to their influence, emotional, player-driven narratives are no longer confined to the indie sphere. They're becoming the norm. Now let's talk aesthetics. When it comes to visuals, AAA games have always had the upper hand, right? More money, more resources, more polygons. But indie games, with their signature ingenuity, found a way to turn their limited budgets into a strength. Enter Cuphead, the run-and-gun game that looked like a playable 1930s cartoon. Its hand-drawn art style was not only charming and unique, it was a bold statement. In a world of photorealistic graphics, Cuphead stood out, proving that sometimes the most striking visuals come from embracing a distinct artistic vision. And then there's Journey, the adventure game that captivated players with its minimalist beauty. Journey's world was vast and breathtaking, but it wasn't about hyper-realistic textures or complex character models. It was about atmosphere, emotion, and the power of simplicity. Indie games like Cuphead and Journey sparked a visual revolution. AAA studios, used to chasing graphical fidelity, sat up and took notice. Indie games reminded the industry that beauty comes in many forms. Chapter 4. Genre Benders. Indie Games, Revivals, and Reinventions. Now, let's dive into the world of genres. Indie games didn't just play within the lines of these established genres. They redrew them, breathed new life into forgotten classics, and even invented entirely new ways to play. Take the roguelike genre, for example. Once a niche genre known for its punishing difficulty and permadeath, roguelikes were brought back from the brink of obscurity by indie darlings like The Binding of Isaac and Spelunky. These games took the core elements of roguelikes, procedurally generated levels, permadeath, and addictive gameplay loops, and made them accessible to a wider audience. The success of indie roguelikes like The Binding of Isaac and Spelunky caught the attention of AAA studios, leading to a full-blown roguelike renaissance. Games like Hades and Returnal, with their polished gameplay, compelling narratives, and yes, even permadeath, proved that roguelike elements could work in a big-budget setting. But it wasn't just about reviving old genres. Indie games also created entirely new ones. The Metroidvania genre saw a resurgence thanks to indie titles like Hollow Knight and Axiom Verge. These games took the best elements of both franchises, added their own unique twists, and created experiences that felt both familiar and refreshingly new. Indie games, with their willingness to experiment and push boundaries, have injected new life into the gaming landscape. They've proven that there's still room for innovation within established genres. Chapter 5. Breaking the Bank and the Mold. Indie Games and the Business Revolution. Now let's get down to business. The business of making games, that is. For years, the AAA model reigned supreme. Big publishers, massive budgets, and marketing blitzes were the norm. But then came the indie scene, armed with passion, creativity, and a new way of doing things. Indie games showed the world that you didn't need a corporate overlord to fund your dream project. They turned to crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, connecting directly with players, and building passionate communities around their games. Shovel Knight, the love letter to 8-bit platformers, is a prime example. Its Kickstarter campaign was a phenomenal success, raising far beyond its initial goal and proving that players were hungry for games that captured the spirit of classic titles. Undertale, too, found its footing through crowdfunding, building a loyal fan base before the game even launched. Indie games didn't just change how games were funded, they changed how they were made. They proved that community involvement wasn't just a buzzword, it was a powerful tool that could lead to better, more engaging games. Chapter 6. From Players to Partners. Indie Games and the Power of Community. And finally, let's talk about the heart and soul of gaming, the players. Indie games didn't just make games players, they made them players, fostering a sense of community and collaboration that was unheard of in the AAA world. Indie developers, often working in small teams, had a unique advantage. They were accessible. They could interact directly with their fans, listen to feedback, and incorporate player suggestions into their games. Hades, the roguelike dungeon crawler that took the world by storm, is a shining example of this player-centric approach. Supergiant Games, the studio behind Hades, used early access as a collaborative tool, constantly engaging with their community, listening to feedback, and refining the game based on player input. This open development process wasn't just about bug fixing. It was about shaping the game's balance, mechanics, and even its story based on player experiences. Hades became a shining example of how a game could evolve and improve through direct collaboration between developers and players. Indie games proved that listening to players wasn't just good PR, it was good game development. The Indie Legacy. Shaping the future of gaming. From innovative gameplay mechanics to emotional storytelling, from unique art styles to groundbreaking business models, indie games have left their mark on every aspect of the gaming industry. Today, The line between indie and AAA is blurring. Big studios are adopting the lessons learned from the indie scene, embracing player feedback, experimenting with new genres, and prioritizing accessibility and inclusivity. The future of gaming has never looked brighter, and as long as indie developers continue to push boundaries, the industry will continue to evolve and thrive. What's your favorite indie game, and how has it changed your view of gaming? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to check out our other videos for more gaming insights. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on the latest in gaming innovation.